I'd like to welcome you to the launch of DataFest Kampala 2021. That will be happening in April 29th to 30th this year. So before we begin, we're prioritizing our online audience, but I want to ask some of the people around here, by show of hands, how many people pronounce it data? Okay. All right, by show of hands, how many people pronounce it data? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so data is really important in this world. If you pull out your phone right now and you type data is the new, and just wait for it to autocomplete, your phone will give you things like the new fuel, the new oil, the new gold. Data really drives everything. If you think about all the largest organizations we have in the world today, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, they all use powerful tools to target their audience and target their customers and make sure that they are selling as much of their products as possible. But data can be a powerful source of good and a powerful source of evil. And so we have organizations like Policy that are trying to harness data for the good of our society. And Policy does this in a bunch of different ways. They mainly seek to increase civic engagement and service delivery by using data and technology and design. And so Policy is driving the agenda for data in Uganda, trying to drive this mission of using data in our daily lives to make decision-making as easy and as efficient as possible. So that's what we're going to do today very briefly. We're going to sort of unveil the roadmap to the launch. We're going to unveil the roadmap to DataFest 2021, which will be happening in April 29th to 30th. Don't forget that. But so right now I'm going to invite some people to speak, to give you a sense of what DataFest is going to look like and also what Policy is about. And we'll take it from there. At this moment, I'd like to invite Bonita Nyamwire to speak to us. Bonita is the head of research at Policy. Put your hands together.
Thank you, Shem, and thank you everybody for having made it here today. You're welcome to Policy. Welcome to this event of launching the Data Festival 2021. We are happy to host you here today. We are very proud of you. We are proud to host DataFest 2021 as Policy here in Kampala. So on behalf of Policy, I would like to welcome everybody who is here with us today. We appreciate that you have made it here despite the weather conditions, and you're here with us. And I would also like to appreciate specifically those who have supported us to make today's event a success. The whole of Policy team, we appreciate you. We also appreciate the support from Defenders and Code for Science and Society. And so today we want to let the general public know that there is DataFest coming. It was supposed to be last year, but because of the pandemic, it didn't happen. So today we are letting the general public know that DataFest 2021 is on. So we are launching it today. So today you'll be taken through what DataFest is going to be about, where it is going to be, when it is going to happen. Shem already said, don't forget 29th and 30th of April 2021. So without taking much of your time, I would like to leave the rest to the other facilitators that are going to talk about DataFest and the activities that will be there, but also to unveil the roadmap, the Data Festival 2021 roadmap. So again, I would like to welcome you here at Policy. Feel at home, enjoy and have fun for the rest of evening as we talk about DataFest, as we talk about data. Thank you very much for listening to me. You're warmly welcome to this launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bonita. It's such a good time to be talking about data right now. We are fresh out of an internet shutdown. We are fresh out of complaints about data, about Safe Border violating privacy laws for its customers. And all these things have one thing in common. They have data. Data in common. And data can be used, like we said, for good, and it can be used for bad. And organizations like Policy are trying to control this narrative by making data as powerful as possible for the benefit of society. So next, I'd like to invite Philip Ayazika, who is the programs manager for Policy, to speak to us very briefly about DataFest Kampala 2021, happening on April 29th to 30th, 2021. Here you go, Philip.
Hi, everyone. I am glad you could join us today. Thanks for standing the weather, the tough weather. My name is Philip Ayazika. I am a program manager with Policy Uganda. And we launched the DataFest, the Data Festival, the biggest data event in the country. DataFest started in 2019, and that's when we had our inaugural event, annual event, where we had very fascinating conversations about data. And last year it didn't happen because of very many reasons, just like every other event that was cancelled in the country. But well, here we are, and I'm glad we can make this happen. I hope it can go through to the end. So from Policy's inception in 2017, we set out ourselves for a task as Policy to redesign services for the citizens. And to do this, Policy position itself as a civic tech center focused on delivering a series of projects really that use a citizen-centric approach to engage, empower, and experiment with citizens, but the ultimate goal here being building a culture around data use and technology. And like I've said, in 2019, we held the first data festival in Uganda, which focused on the use of data in decision-making for both the public and private sector. And this event really brought together hundreds. I hope this year, after this year, I'll be saying DataFest brought together millions, thousands. But last 2019, DataFest brought together hundreds of data scientists, technologists, designers, government, civil society, and business people to explore various avenues and opportunities for collaboration. Issues regarding data quality, data privacy, data management, data visualization were discussed through an action-packed hands-on session. Unfortunately, following events that happened in 2020, early 2020, DataFest was postponed. However, on a good side of the coin, I think, and you'll agree with me that most of us now understand the importance of data. And when I talk about data, most people may think about data bundles and the Airtel data bundles and etc. But we are looking at information numbers here, okay? So when you talk about personal data, we're talking about things like your personal information, your age, your gender, your name being out there. That is your personal data, okay? So when we took a break and we postponed DataFest in 2020, it gave us time to reevaluate and re-strategize on how to make this international event more efficient, but also preceding incidents resulting from the global health pandemic gave enormous opportunities to the general public to better understand the relevance of data and digital technologies, okay? Because now, in the year 2020, we moved to a remote world. People are working from home. So even people that didn't know about digital ICTs or digital tools, using digital tools, people that didn't know about remote working, I think, whereas it was a very unfortunate incident, but now people understand the relevance of these things. And I think there was a time when everyone was looking up to see what was the Ministry of Health posting, how many numbers, how many new cases had come out. And now that is the power of data, because you were glued on the phone every day or on the TV set to see what more numbers are coming out. And this is how we use data in making decisions. To make a decision, do I go out? So some people were even scared of moving out of their houses because they knew the numbers out there were surging. So this is how data has become important, that it has become a part of our lives, which is really what we hope to further explore and explain at this year's DataFest. that way, Policy today is delighted to announce that DataFest is returning for the year 2021 under the theme Living with Data. Shem asked whether we pronounce it as data or data. What do you prefer I pronounce it like? I'm Ugandan. I will say, so people who say data are equivalent to the people who call a lift an elevator. I don't know. And washing laundry. It is washing in Uganda. Okay. So we are saying living with data, data as a way of life, understanding the role of data or data. So I'll be switching them once in a while, data and data. For this year, we demystify, learn more, and celebrate data in the region. We're looking at how data is helping us reimagine human interactions, how data is being used in e-government initiatives that are transforming service delivery, and diving deep into getting accurate COVID numbers in real time. For a while, data has been considered a technical topic, and yet we continue to form the core ecosystem and be part of the cycle. So the question I want to pose to all of you today is, how can then an element whose cycle we form the basis of be an alien element still? Because we are the people that generate the data every day, okay? From the Google searches we make, from the trips we make using these ride-hailing hubs, to the numbers that we put out there and the information we put out there. We are the people that generate the data. So how can a topic that we form the ecosystem for be an alien topic? So what the DataFest this year is going to do, we hope that DataFest 2021 can be a groundbreaking opportunity to include everyone in the conversation of data, no matter the sector you belong to. In the conversation of understanding and appreciating that data is an integral part of our day-to-day lives, and thus that we need to own it, okay? We need to own it and use it for our own good in as much as decision is concerned. I hope for a Uganda or for a citizen that uses data to make decisions, okay? DataFest 2021 will be a hybrid 2-day marathon with both in-person and online audience, and it will happen on starting Wednesday 28th to Thursday 29th of April, and it is all happening in Kampala here, the Pearl of Africa. Conversations will focus now on how data impacts on our daily basis, impacts us on a daily basis, and how companies, big tech companies, use data to make decisions. Okay, we hope to explore how we live with data and how the availability of new sets of data has changed the way we live our lives, from our transactions online to event signups to social media navigation, and how all this informs the decisions for big data companies and data-centered organizations. Well, on kind of an unfortunate level this year, there's been a lot of conversation and anger online in regards to a certain ride-hailing app in Uganda here. And for me, whereas it is a very unfortunate event, I'm glad that people are having these conversations and people are starting to understand the importance of data, okay? People are starting to understand that if someone has your data, they should be ethical enough to handle it in an ethical manner, okay? So whereas it is an unfortunate event that a certain ride-hailing app or and other people sort of breached the data agreements that we had with them, it is also good that people are starting to have this conversation and ask themselves questions, because now this is where the whole conversation starts, and this is where people try to understand and have this conversation at even a national level or a regional level. So our roadmap is very clear. Today we launched the DataFest. Today, Friday, 12th February, we launched the DataFest. And then on February 15th, we shall put out a call for speakers and workshop proposals. On March 1st, we shall announce keynote speakers. On March 22nd, 2021, we shall release the final agenda to the public. On March 9th, 2021, registration will be open for participants. On 29th April, the first day and the opening ceremony, and we shall have workshops and breakaway sessions happening. I'm glad we have our partners here that are hosting us present, Motive. Then on 30th April, we shall have workshops and remote side events. That's on the 2. And then still we shall have that networking event and closing ceremony. So DataFest this year is going to be sort of interesting and creative because we're having the launch in one place, and we shall have breakout sessions in the same place. That is motive. And then later on the second day, we shall have remote events. Okay? And what remote side events means is that we can have, you wake up one day and you sign up for an event, and you can have one event at Policy here in Bugolobi, and then the other side event will be at in Intinda, and then the other event will be in Kamocha, and then maybe the other event will be in Jinja. So we shall see how that goes. But I want to call upon everyone to join us for DataFest this year, and head to www.datafestkampala.com, and I'm sure our people that are doing the online live stream will sort of broadcast that and the details. But also keep glued to our social media. On Facebook, it's Policy, and on Twitter, it's at Policy UG, and then on our website www.policy.org. What we are doing today here is a very groundbreaking event, and we hope we can sort of change the narrative and change conversations and help people understand how they can use data in their day-to-day living. We call upon all data enthusiasts, academics, journalists, human rights defenders, designers, students, technologists, and business people to be part of this year's biggest data festival happening here in Kampala, hosted by Policy. I want to take this opportunity to thank our partners, including the Digital Human Rights Lab, both for science and society, Defenders, and other very many partners that are still joining us. We call upon more partners to come on board and let us make this journey a very colorful and a very effective and successful journey. On behalf of Policy, that said, I take this opportunity to launch the DataFest Kampala 2021. In just a minute, I will ask my team, the Policy team, to join me here as I unveil the DataFest journey. I'll ask my Policy team, my colleagues, to join me as we launch and unveil the DataFest journey.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, are we going to do a countdown? All right, so just hold on 1 second. Do we have everyone, all the team members around? Yes? All right, so on my count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Philip unveils a beautiful roadmap to DataFest Kampala 2021, happening on April 29th to 30th this year. It will be a hybrid event happening both physically at Motive Uganda and also online, just to cater for all the audiences.
Thank you so much, Shom. This is the roadmap of DataFest Kampala 2021. Very beautiful here. This is the Pearl of Africa. So like I've said, today, February 12th, Friday, we launched DataFest, and also open call for speakers and workshop proposals.
Have a link or a connection to the database that tells them we are going to pick up X person at X location, and in that very instant, those emergency services know what your blood type is, just in case you might need blood. They have to know all the critical details about you before they come to you, so that they can serve you as quickly as possible and save your life as quickly as possible.
Activities where we are going to use data from. So that is why we are going to analyze it, conflicting issues with our data.
All right, thank you very much, Bonita. Bonita highlights a very important issue about some of the fundamental parts of the data process involve preparing the data and storing it. All right, so the next question. What's your vision for how DataFest can add value to the East African data space today?
I think I'll just supplement on what Bonita said. Biggest data, conflict, yes.
Yeah.
Whereas Bonita said we as Policy have not had any biggest data conflict. And thank you, because I mean, Policy is a data place, so I don't expect any conflicts. But I think even just beyond Policy, I think this is a common scenario that most organizations find themselves with, and especially those that interact so much with individuals' personal data. Of course, there's a conversation on either being ethical in handling people's data or just making money, okay? Like everyone has said, data is the biggest, data is the new oil. Data is the biggest resource you can have right now as an organization. You find organizations that have multitudes of data, thousands of individuals' personal data. This means these people have your lives, okay? So I think the most conflicting scenario any organization can find themselves is whether to be ethical in handling individual data or to make money, exploit it and just make money, okay? And we've had on several scenarios where organizations have sold people's individual data because there are people out there that are willing to pay the biggest sums of money. But going back to the second question, which I'll ask you to ask again.
Absolutely, absolutely. The second question is, what is your vision for how DataFest can add value to the East African data space today?
My vision on how DataFest can better the data space in the region is, first of all, I hope DataFest can set precedent on what kinds of conversation we should be having. But also, I hope that we can move to a level where we think, we have a free thinking on collaboration, okay? Where individuals want to collaborate on conversation of data. So there's so many conversations we can have in the realm of data, from data privacy, data security, data visualizations. And what I hope for is that the various stakeholders that we want to be part of data, the data enthusiasts from technologists, academia, civil society, can understand the importance of data and what role data can play into this, into the. So from the kind of way they operate their businesses, but also from the kinds of decisions they make internally as organizations. Because I think every decision you make should be data informed, should be evidence based, okay? So for me, what I envision, I hope DataFest creates a space, an open space, where we can all have conversation, free conversation on how data and what are some of the emerging trends in the region, but also just set ground and level ground on what is ethical and what is unethical and what everyone should be talking about. Yeah.
Thank you, Philip. Maria?
So I'll stick to answering the easier question, which is the second one. What I envision that the DataFest can contribute to the East African data space is just to simplify the conversation. Understanding that data affects our daily lives, the conversations we have, the opinions that we hold, our governance issues, politics, disinformation, all of these things are informed by data. So how do we simplify this conversation so that everybody understands that when you sign into a book, getting into a building, you're actually leaving information there? What's the guarantee that that book will not be passed on to men and women who are going to call you and tell you you won 100 million and you sell your entire clan because you think you're going to get 100 million or things like that? Because that's all part of the discussion around data, but also data protection. So for me, it's to simplify this information so that everybody can participate in holding institutions that collect, process, or use your data accountable.
Thank you very much, Maria. Bonita, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I can add that we hope that DataFest will spark the conversation on how do we use the large amounts of data that are collected by both the private and the public sector. Because we see a lot of organizations, both public and the private sector, collecting data on different issues. So we hope that the conversation will be sparked by DataFest to see how such large amounts of data can be used. Because we see that data being collected is a lot, but only a few things are picked and a few variables, a few data specifics are picked and used for mainly that purpose for which it was collected. But again, there are so many other things that could be used with that data. So we want to also see that DataFest sparks that conversation on how we can use those large amounts of data that are being collected in our country and I think on our continent as Africa.
Thank you very much, Bonita. A few things I take from that. I take data literacy is very important. I think a lot of people need to understand and appreciate what the repercussions are of the kind of data they share, their personal data or organizations.
So in terms of how it would support businesses in you have, it also helps organizations to grow in a way to respond to the changing environment. Because today, and we've seen that with the COVID lockdown, that you couldn't afford to run a business that did not occupy online space. Because as soon as everything was closed, everyone wanted stuff delivered to them. And that's how data informs decision making for organizations, and how organizations analyze that data, making sure that they're analyzing it accurately, then gives them a space in which to grow, to evolve, and be able to respond relevantly to the needs of people they serve.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you so much. I think I have two words to that question, or two sentences. One being building with and not for. And that is what data is about. So for small businesses, and when you're in business, you're either providing a service or you're providing a product, but also the kind of service you're providing should speak to the needs of the customers you're providing it for. So let me take an example of a young startup that is putting up an app out there, and the app would be their product. Okay? So how do they use data? Okay? So first it starts with understanding the ecosystem. Okay? So I'm serving a young population of young ladies, okay, whose problem is this. So data helps you understand what is the problem, okay? So go out there and understand what is the problem that young ladies in schools maybe are finding. It could be a problem speaking to, sexual reproductive health, that they have a problem accessing, sanitary towels, or it's a lack of information knowing where to find them, okay? So that is all using data, and for you crafting the product or service you're crafting should be informed by data, and saying if the problem is lack of information of where these services are, I'm putting up an app that is using maybe Google Maps that will show which hospitals are in the area and which services do they produce. So I think that is the easiest way that I can tell you that how businesses can use data to improve their processes. So I think it should be part and parcel of everyday processes as you build business models, as you build products, as you design services. Data should be a key factor of the whole process.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, I just want to push back a little bit. Okay, so my name is Shem Opolot. I want to sell mandazis in Bogolobi Market. How can data work for me at this point?
Yes, Shem Opolot, you want to create mandazi. First and foremost, who wants to eat mandazi?
I'm hoping people in Bogolobi.
People in Bogolobi. What kind of people stay in Bogolobi? They're all in gates, okay, for example. And that is all data. People are all in gates. So how are you going to sell the mandazi? Do you use an app? Do you use a border? Do you walk? Okay, how will you be able to access the people that are going to eat your mandazi? So that is all data. So when you notice that people are closing their camera and they want to be able to come out, you say, I'm opening up a Facebook page, because the people are inside the camera and they're online, so they can only access my products on Facebook. I mean, that is all how you just have to play with data, because you understand who are you trying to serve, okay? And this is all a process of data collection. You analyze the data and make use of it. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Bonita would like to say something. Bonita, are you saving my mandazi business?
Yeah, I want to save you mandazi business.
Thank you.
So data is not only numbers, data can also be in text. So in terms of selling your mandazi, if you may need to know the situation, what sometimes we call a needs assessment or a situational analysis, and then you get to know where I am going to do my business, what is the environment, are the customers there, how much are they willing to buy. So collecting information will help you to know where you're going to sell, how much you're going to sell, what kind of population should you target, given that Philip has said most of the homes in Bugolobi, for instance, are in enclosures. Will you be knocking on the door? What strategy will you use to be able to access their homes, to access the buyers? How many mandazis should you make in a day, and things like that. So data is not only in numbers, but you can also collect data in terms of text, which is usually qualitative, and then you analyze it. It informs you on how you're going to do your business, but it also can help you to come up with innovations on how maybe to make better mandazis, which can be accepted by people who live in enclosures.
Thank you very much, Bonita. Maria?
Maybe also just to save your Mandazi business. Alternatively, you could just move the business to Chitintali, where there are fewer people within enclosed spaces, and that's what data will do for you. When you realize that these people are gated communities, if you knock at the gate, a dog is going to come at you before a human being does. So you just move to Chitintali, where it's a more informal settlement, and there are more people who do not exist in a very exclusive kind of community.
Okay, I mean, just my last question on that. I know that we get the sense that policy does a lot of civic engagement just based on the way the direction the conversations are going. A lot of civic engagement, a lot of high-level organizational data support and consulting and training and things like that. So I'm wondering, this information you've given me on my Mandazi business, is this something that you can offer to small business owners like me?
Yes, part of what policy does from research is consultancy. So policy is able to advise. That isn't something we've been doing commercially. But I mean, we have a whole team of experts. Okay, we have Bonita there, the research guru, and we have all these guys. So I think, yes, we should be able to advise an everyday person on how we use data, because I mean, that's what we are here for. Okay, and I think if the top people won't listen to our conversations, we need to use the ground mechanism of working with the local people and helping them understand how they can use data in their day-to-day businesses and how data can be important in their business. So absolutely, that's a service that policy can provide to.
Thank you very much, Philip. You've heard it here first. If you want to open a Mandazi business, come to policy. All right, let's just turn a bit to something a bit more serious. In light of recent events such as a spike in cyber attacks in Kenya and Uganda and stories about companies selling user data without consent, what do you say is the state of data privacy in the region?
I think really the region is taking baby steps, and I won't speak directly to Uganda. Of course, we've come a long way in terms of data privacy and protection. As of 2019, we saw a very good act that was enacted, the Data Privacy and Data Protection and Privacy Act, which provides for the protection of an individual's personal data, and it also provides for setting up the data privacy office and having someone in charge, and just making sure that the space is really regulated. So what I can speak to the landscape of data privacy to Uganda, really, I think there's so much work that needs to be done, but also we need to appreciate that we've really come a long way, because we are starting to have these conversations now. For me, it would be ideal, and this is exactly what DataFest is trying to do. It would be ideal taking these conversations to the grassroots, okay? Taking these trainings, the data protection trainings, digital security trainings, the grassroots, helping people understand that even a smartphone should have maybe a password to it, or how do you set a strong password? I mean, that's how things start, that's how conversations start. Setting a strong password and digital detox, how do you make sure you don't leave digital footprint out there? How do you secure yourself when using the online space? How do you keep yourself safe from hacking and all these things? So I think, well, it is 50-50. Well, we are getting there. It's been a long way, but I think there's still more that needs to be done.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think I'll speak to that. I think we're growing as a region, really just agreeing with him, but also understanding that for a government to be, and government holds the responsibility to be the primary protector of people's data, because they enact laws, they implement policies, and for them to be able to do that, it's also a question of knowledge, it's a question of interest, and it also speaks the bigger governance equation. That if you're unable to make healthcare work, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to make data protection work, right? So it also speaks the bigger governance question. But it's also an infrastructure question, that at what point do we then realize that a country like Uganda is not yet equipped to be able to protect data, and yet we have a lot of companies that are coming in here and collecting information and leaving. Some of these companies are richer than us as a country. So how then do we peek into that fight? But it also speaks to the global divide in terms of power and ability to protect citizens' data in the different spaces. For Uganda to take on a fight with a company that's located in the global south has very big repercussions for us economically, for us even socially, because again, like I said, these countries have access, they have power that we may not have. The UK is able to call Africa to a UK-Africa convention, but Uganda cannot call the Europe to a Europe-Uganda conversation. Like, who are you convening? Who do you think you are, right? So it's also speaking to those global power dynamics. And it's also important for us to think about data in terms of globalization. And provided we have unequal power relations at global level, data protection is going to be a very, very big problem. Also understanding that there is a big racial component to it, that you're just playing in a playing field that you don't own. The people who own the playing field are people who exist on another part of the world.
Wow. Bonita, anything? Maybe just, again, a slight, part B of that question, for my benefit and maybe for those out there. I want to ask, is part of the reason why we are so snail-paced in achieving some of the things you've talked about because of the general lack of expertise in the space? I think the Benitas of this world are very few and far between. What do you think about that? And how do we fix that?
Well, it's part of the problem, right? I cannot say that it's not part of it. But also understanding that priorities, just think about your government's priorities, because that informs everything. It informs the way the education system is going to be structured to be able to deliver a certain skill set into the market. It's going to inform the information that people are able to access. What are the priorities? Because at this point, it's very embarrassing that the schooling system doesn't take certain things as very important, and yet our children are supposed to compete with a certain set of people in the country. So I would just say that it's a question of what are we prioritizing and how are we able to have people who can predict what the future is going to look like, and how do we produce people for that future. Because if in 2021 we're producing children from schools to respond to a 2021 world, who are the people who are going to respond to the 2030 world at whatever point it will be?
All right, thank you very much. Philip, do you have something to add?
Just something small. I think the other, like Maria said, this is part of the problem, okay? But one thing, I think, is a question of technocrats or politicians, okay? Which kind of people do we have in these spaces? Which kind of people do we have leading these conversations? Because we have a whole set of technocrats. It's not even about them not being out there. I think we should have technocrats, people that understand this conversation, be in these spaces, not just politicians. So I think I'll just leave that at that.
Yeah. This is awkward because the next question literally tells you, so what do you suggest government and the private sector do about this problem?
For me, I think we need to have more conversations between the government and the private sector in terms of the data and information that we collect. Because just like I said earlier along, that a lot of information is being collected, but little is being used. But also, who is storing this information? Where does it go in the long run? So we need to have more conversations between the private and the public sector on the use of data, the storing of data, the confidentiality of data. And then, again, it is an issue of policy implementation, because the policies really are there to govern data use, data collection, security and safety of data and information that has been gathered from subjects. So generally, but the implementation is still lacking. Yeah, so it is where I think something that Philip has talked about, where we need to harmonize on the implementation of the policies that we have that govern the use of data, the confidentiality, the safety and security, and everything to do with data. So the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector should really be comprehensive to take on all those issues to do with data and information use, safety and security.
Thank you very much. Philip, would you like to say something?
To speak on what government can do, I think there's also need to have collaboration, not just between government and private sector, but also the government itself, between the government MDS, the ministries, departments, and agencies. There's need to have sort of find a meeting point, because for me, and when it comes to data, I don't think we should be having, in 2021, I don't think we should be having conversations of you go to a bank, you have a national ID, and they will still ask for an LC letter, which same LC letter you use. So you go to a bank, they want the same information. You go to pick a passport, they want the same information from your village LC chairperson. You go to pick a driving permit, they want the same information. I mean, this is how data is important. And you, for those that have been through these processes, you can understand the frustration that comes when governments don't utilize data. Because if a national ID, if I have a national ID, it should be the primary data tool, okay? It should be able to get me to all these spaces. But also, and I'm speaking to what collaboration within the government MDS can do. We've seen, and this is still data, we've seen the streets of Kampala, okay? I'll tell you that one day, National Water will come and dig up a sewer, okay? They will do whatever they do and they will cover it, okay? The other day, Uganda Telecom will come and dig up the same place. The other day, NITA will come and dig up the same place. And this is why I'm talking about collaboration, because even the MDAs themselves are not collaborated. They have all this data, they have all these plans, but they don't have the capacity to consolidate these plans and make service delivery effective. So I think the question goes back to even the MDAs being, collaborating, of course, on top of collaborating with the private sector.
Thank you very much, Philip. Philip speaks very personally about these things. If anyone has any doubts about the importance of data, how long did it take you to get your national ID? And how long did it take you to open a bank account with that national ID? Those are the challenges we have. I've asked all the questions I have to ask. I'd like to thank the panelists for sharing their information with us and their knowledge. Thank you so much. We are supposed to have a video. Policy has a video to show us. I don't know if it's ready. Ready? All right. Playing right now.
The Conference Fund Manager at Code for Science. I'd like to thank Gilbert and Nima for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Emily Lesak, and I'm the Conference Fund Manager at Code for Science and Society, a US-based nonprofit that provides community programs to support public interest technology and is home to 8 projects from research to civic tech. DataFest Kampala is part of our Event Fund's inaugural cohort of 13 grantees spanning 4 continents. We launched the Event Fund last year with seed funding from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation to support research-driven open data science events around the world. Due to the pandemic, we've shifted our focus to virtual events centered on tools, practices, and communities. We take a community-centered approach to funding by placing funding decisions in the hands of active members of the data science community who are aware of emerging issues in the community. Beyond funding research data science, we actively seek to increase access to funds for those who are working on emergent issues and also to individuals from historically underrepresented populations. And our second request for proposals is currently open for submissions. Our grantees are creating inclusive data science curricula. They're teaching data visualization skills and improving open data practices. And importantly, they're building communities in historically underserved areas. We enthusiastically support Policy's work in organizing DataFest Kampala. We appreciate the organizers' deep understanding of their community, their commitment to engaging attendees who may not be able to attend an in-person event, and also their focus on data literacy. We're very much looking forward to the event in April and have no doubt that it will have a strong positive impact on the community.
Thank you very much. A very informative video we have there. So in conclusion, I would just like to say, first of all, most priority is the DataFest Kampala 2021, happening April 29th to 30th. It will be a hybrid event hosted both at Motive and online. And just in conclusion, data, I think it's Bonita. Bonita said something very important, and as well as the rest of the panelists, they talked about how data is not just numbers and it's not just text. And data is really essentially information. I had one of the communication fellows say that earlier. And data is really a means for us to make sense of our world in whatever way that means to us. Show me any field, any sector, and I'll tell you how data is absolutely vital to them surviving and to them offering the best services they can offer. So this is why an event like DataFest is extremely important at this time in this part of the world. So we hope to see you April 29th and 30th, Motive, Uganda. Join us for DataFest. Thank you very much. My name is Shema Polot.